Welcome to the 100 podcast. It's Ed and Charlie here with you. Hope you're well. Today we're really excited to be joined by Yorkshire and Northern Superchargers all-rounder Jordan Thompson. Jordan, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Not at all, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Jordan, I want to start by just pointing out some stats of yours because they are mad. Your T20 strike rate, 167. You've hit more sixes than fours in T20 cricket. That is absolutely mental. I mean, how?
I don't know myself, to be honest. I think there was always a joke when I was growing up that I was probably a bit of a slogger. I had to kind of nurture myself into kind of red ball 4-day cricket and not give my wicket away so much in county championship cricket, which I've done pretty well through Yorkshire second team and into the first team. But there's always that six hitting side that's still to me, and I just like to hit boundaries. So patience in red ball is key for me. But when I'm facing the white ball, it's all about scoring boundaries, and luckily I've done that this year.
Of course, as you say, you've been in amazing touch this year, especially with the bat, and you are fully deserving of getting a nod for the Superchargers. What was it like when you found out?
Yeah, it was quality, really. I had an eye on it leading up to the wildcard picks on the Friday night. We were playing Lancashire on the Friday night, and it was getting revealed on TV. But luckily, it was taken out of my hands on the Monday prior. I got a call from Andy Dawson at Northern Superchargers and said that they'd like me to replace Ollie Stone. So yeah, it was obviously a great feeling. It was something that I was aiming to play in this year. Unfortunately, didn't get picked up in the draft back in February, but now I'm playing it, and we're a week away from starting, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it does feel like you're perfectly suited to this format, as you say, and it is a different format, though. It's a brand new format of the game. There's a lot of unknown quantities. How are you going into this? Are you changing your mindset, or are you just kind of going in with the same mindset that you have for T20 cricket and just trying to give it a go, have a hit?
Yeah, I think I actually played in the trial game. So there ran some 100 ball trial games, probably end of 2018, I think it was, something like that. It was quite a while ago now, when the idea first arrived. And like I say, it's different rules, but when you're actually playing the game, it doesn't feel too dissimilar to T20 cricket. Obviously, you've got 20 balls less, a bit of a different setup with the 5 balls, 10 balls from one end, 5 balls and over. But like I said, when you're actually out there playing the game, it does run pretty similar to a T20 game. It's obviously all high speed, a lot of action. So I'm sure we'll be getting told the inside and outs of the rules this week before we move into the first game next Saturday. But I think looking forward to it.
Yeah, we talked to your teammate Harry Brook, both at Yorkshire and the Northern Superchargers, and he said he had no idea what was happening with the rules. So you seem in a better place than he does.
Yeah, well, I'd say Brookie didn't actually play the trial game, so I think I'm probably a step ahead of him and probably a few of the rest of the lads as well.
Of course, and you've batted in a few different positions this season for Yorkshire. You've kind of started off at 7, moved up to 3 recently, but where would you say you want to be batting ideally? Where do you see your role being going forward?
Well, just going back to this, I was going to say, calling me a slogger, it's probably not the right word to call me, but like hitting sixes lower down the order and being a bit of a hitter later on in the innings is probably where my role was for Yorkshire leading up to this season. It was something that the coaches spoke to me about and working on kind of striking at the end of the game to score as many runs as possible. But I know personally, and I think the coaches and the team know now, that the more balls I can face, I can actually build an innings in T20 cricket. I can be quite dangerous. So ideally, moving forward, I would like to be batting higher up in the order. Batting at 3 is probably perfect for me in the long run. But obviously, with the people in the squad that we've got and the lads coming back from injuries and back from England, it's probably going to be quite tough to continue batting at 3. So, for example, tomorrow night against Lancashire, I'm not sure if I will be in that 3 spot because obviously we've got Rooty coming back. Will Frane's back available, so I might find myself slipping back down again. But anywhere I can bat for the team is obviously I'll be happy to do. And if I can hit a few sixes batting at 7 later in innings or getting early doors batting at 3, I'll do my best.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be tough to get up the order for the Superchargers because when we look through your lineup, the 6 guys who might bat ahead of you are all openers. You've got Livy, Faf du Plessis, Tom Colocan, Ben Stokes probably likes batting up there as well. There's a lot of openers up there. David Willey as well.
Yeah, I was looking at the amount of firepower we've got in that top order. It kind of goes from one extreme to the other. We've got kind of 6 openers, and then after that, it's just all rounders. So like I say, we're going to back down to 11, but we go from some seriously big hitters to some all-rounders who can also score some big runs. You look at Ben Rain, who scored a T20 100. Brian Carse, I've seen him whack a few against us early in the season. Myself, Rash. It's just, and then obviously, like you said, you got Dave, who's opened in T20 cricket for us in the past, and the firepower we've got is ridiculous, really.
Looking at the Northern Supercharger squad, you kind of got a nice blend of familiar Yorkshire faces that you'd have played with a lot, as well as kind of the bigger names from around the world, the overseas stars like Faf du Plessis and Chris Lynn. It must be great for you, obviously, to play with guys you're mates with and have played a lot with Yorkshire, but also to play with guys like Faf and Chris Lynn who've played a lot of cricket. Will you be looking to learn from those guys? How are you going to try and take knowledge from them, especially a guy like Ben Stokes, who might be a player who's quite similar to you in terms of their role in T20 cricket?
Yeah, definitely. The experiences that they've gone through in world cricket compared to what I've experienced so far, I feel like I've played a lot of cricket. I've played 50 first-team games now, but that's probably nothing compared to the international games that there's a lot of played. So to kind of play and learn from them is going to be brilliant. And also, obviously, Darren Lehman as our head coach, left-hander like me, I'll probably be learning a lot from him in regards to batting, not just in T20 cricket, but in red ball cricket as well. And it's going to be important for me, myself, Harry Brook, Matthew Fisher, young lads at Yorkshire, to kind of pick things up, not just for white ball cricket, but for all formats. I think it's quite important to learn while we've got the time with them, 5-6 weeks to pick their brains, and hopefully I'm sure they'll be more than willing to help us.
What I find is also quite interesting is that, as well as playing alongside a lot of your teammates, you might be facing off against quite a few as well. They got obviously Joe Root and Darvin Malan over at Trent Rockets, Bairstows at Welsh Fire, Big Lockie Ferguson over at Manchester Originals. Is there anyone you're particularly looking forward to facing up against, or is there someone you think, oh bloody hell, don't fancy that?
No, I think it'd be exciting. I think playing against each other in this tournament, and then kind of probably coming back in the winter and seeing each other training when they come back from franchises or playing for England or whatever. It's going to be, obviously, hopefully you can get one up on them and you can wind them up a little bit when you see them. But no, I think it's just exciting to play against them. And I'm sure in years to come, I feel like maybe this year, where you can see the teams are very localised, but I think as the 100 moves on over the years, I think you'll find that a few Yorkshire players might end up at different teams. I think that's just how the draft will work in years to come. I feel like maybe teams have played it safe and kept people in their team that they know what they can do. But I think moving forward in drafts in the future, I think we'll find that teams will be a lot more spread out and there'll be a lot more diversity in the county teams.
Yeah, and that Supercharger side obviously has a lot of Yorkshire players. And just to touch on Yorkshire for a moment, it must be really cool being in around that squad, because obviously it's got loads of experience of Adam Lyth, obviously Joe Root coming back when he can. But then you've also got a lot of really young players coming through kind of at the same time, the likes of yourself, Matt Fisher, obviously, Harry Brook. There is a lot of really young and exciting Yorkshire talent there. So it must be great, firstly, to kind of come through with those guys, but also to have a squad that's full of experienced stars and really hungry guys like yourself who have a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think there's a nice mixture at the moment. It's just getting to the stage now where kind of myself, Harry Brook, Matt Fisher, Don Bess, Matty Waite are kind of the core of the team who need to start kind of performing and winning games. You got your Lythe, you got your Dave Willie when he comes back. So obviously they're always going to be there, the experienced players, but they've won us games in the past, and now it's time for us to start putting in match-winning performances and helping the youngsters come through, the 19, 20-year-olds like George Hill, Dom Leach, for example, and kind of getting them to our level now and standard to win games for the club and hopefully get some silverware.
Moving back to the 100, there are going to be some really high-quality bowlers playing in this tournament, obviously, and quite a few of them you might not have faced before, the likes of, Rashid Khan, Sunil Narayan, Lungi Ngidi. There's got international stars who are coming into the tournament. Is there anybody in particular that you look at in this tournament and think, I would really love to have a go up against them, whether that's a bowler or a batter, just somebody you'd love to get into the heat of the moment with and have a competition with?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've not actually had a chance. I've looked obviously at the squads, but I've not, with all the ins and outs of the overseas, with obviously people not being able to come, I've not actually fully looked at what overseas are now actually in the tournament. So it'd be interesting to face obviously the likes of Narayan and Rashid Khan, kind of mystery spinners, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of kind of studying going into them before we play them. But no, like I say, there's so many big names in the tournament. It's just going to be exciting kind of take them on as a team, not just as individuals. So no, I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Moving away from the field quickly, Jordan, you're an ambassador for Diabetes UK, and you frequently post on social media weighing awareness of it. But I'm really curious to know, as a cricketer with type 1 diabetes, do you have to manage that slightly? I mean, what is that like? Because I must admit, you are the first cricketer with diabetes that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was about 16, so it was actually for type 1 diabetes. That's quite late, because they call type 1 diabetes juvenile diabetes. So it's more either you can be born with it or you get it really early on in life. Fortunately for me, I got it. Well, I always say unfortunate for me, but I think it's quite fortunate that I got it when I was 16, because I was quite mature. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how to control it when I was playing sport and things like that. And as a young child with it, it might be a very tricky, not just for them, but for the parents to look after them. Anyway, so moving into my cricket, it was a matter of making sure that I balance my blood sugar levels, so I can perform really. If my blood sugar levels were to drop too low, I'd go off the pitch. I'll have a Lucozade. The lads, obviously the backroom staff, the physios, and the 12th man, they all know that I need sugar if I call for it. So there'll be a Lucozade waiting for me on the side, anything like that. But obviously then at lunchtime and at tea time, I'll inject insulin when I'm eating my food. On that side of things, I've got to be careful I don't inject too much insulin, because what the insulin does is counteracts the sugar. So if I take too much, sugar levels will drop. If I take too little, sugar levels will go too high. So it's about getting an optimum line of sugar levels to keep my body going. So yeah, it'll sound probably complicated to you. It does sound complicated to people I explain it to all the time, but once you get the hang of it, for me, I've had it for 8 years now. So it's about looking after myself and making sure that making sure everybody's aware of it. That's one of the main things. Obviously, the last thing you need is something going wrong, and people not knowing. So, no, I kind of say it hasn't benefited me, but it's kind of spurred me on to want to do well, because I know that it's not an ideal illness to have, but to kind of be strong and put it to one side and play professional sport is quite a big thing for me. So no, yeah, I embrace it and just look after it as well as I can.
Yeah, and I guess the 100 is obviously going to be on a huge stage, going to be on free-to-air television. Is it ever going to pop into your mind that, as somebody with type 1 diabetes, one of the kind of rare sportsmen, I guess, who has it, do you ever think that going out on the field and performing and raising awareness can help those who have that illness at a young age? Do you ever think that there might be some kids looking out there and being inspired by your journey?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a few younger children in touch with me through Diabetes UK who play cricket. I've written to a few people who've asked for advice and things like that. So it's important. I think everybody, no matter what it is, everybody needs a role model. And for something like that, for an illness where it's quite tough to get used to, especially for younger kids, to go out there and be confident in sport and kind of back themselves to do well. It's important that you have somebody to look up to. So that's the main aim for me, is just give something back to people. If people are asking for help or asking for advice, and always be open to them, and I'll always try and help.
Yeah, it's great, the awareness you put together. It really is fabulous. This is a slightly cheeky question that I don't know if I'm going to get away with, but when you look at this Northern Supercharger side, obviously it is really, really strong. You've got a lot of firepower. Do you guys have any kind of expectations of how you're going to do this tournament? Have you sat down and thought, okay, we can genuinely be one of the favourites, we can go win this? Or do you kind of go about it in the very kind of procedural way of saying, okay, next game, let's win that, next game, win that? Or do you guys have, I guess, that aura around the squad thinking, we believe in ourselves, we can do this?
Yeah, you always got to have that belief. We haven't actually met up yet. We actually meet together on Monday. Obviously, our first game's the Saturday after, so we've got plenty of time. We've got a couple of training sessions. Sure, we'll be having a couple of meetings about how we're going to go about the games. But I think it's important that you don't get ahead of yourself. We'll take one game at a time and work out. I think it'll be important to work out how teams are going to go about it. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be a few different tactics flying around in the tournament, because it's the first time anybody's ever played it. So no, I think we'll back ourselves. It's the first edition, so anybody could win it. But we'll definitely have the belief in the squad that we can go all the way and lift the trophy.
And finally, Jordan, I have to ask, what part of the 100 are you most excited about?
I think just with it being the first edition, I think that's a massive thing in itself. I think I'll look back after my career and if it's a successful competition moving forward, you can look back and be proud that you were picked in the first ever tournament, and to play amongst some great players. Obviously, it's really exciting. So hopefully we draw in the crowds and get some good atmosphere at the ground. I'm sure Henley will be bouncing when we're playing at home. So I think it'll be a proud moment to kind of step out in the first edition of the tournament, and hopefully we'll do well.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and best of luck for the tournament.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Podcast100. We've got loads of clips there, loads of different stuff going on, so make sure to follow us there. And please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to know what you think, and it would really help us out. So thank you very much for listening to the 100 Podcast, and we'll speak to you next time.